You're listening to Sensitive Changemakers. This podcast is created for highly sensitive leaders and is designed to support you to embrace your strengths and gifts so you can feel more confident in your own mind and body and live a life with intention, purpose, and more importantly, joy. I'm your host, Kate Carter, a fellow HSP who has a BA Honours degree in education, is a fully trained and qualified professional coach and NLP practitioner, and has over 17 years of teaching and over 3 years of coaching experience supporting highly sensitive people. I believe that you can do anything you want to in this life, but that sometimes the path forward becomes muddy with self-doubt and fear of failure. It's my mission to help sensitive thought leaders peel away the self-doubt and stories holding them back, for them to see their own beauty and strength so they can increase self-confidence and self-trust through thought and embodiment work and see their path clearly and move forward confidently, living their life with intention and purpose. I would love for you to come and join us. Hello and welcome back to Sensitive Changemakers. Today I am really excited to welcome back Kirsten. Now, we had Kirsten last year. I think it was one of our earliest ones. And I love Kirsten so much. I love what she stands for. I love how present she is on social media and how consistent she is. And she's just got such a lovely way about her. I really wanted to have her back on. So if you haven't listened to the previous Kirsten's podcast, Kirsten is a confidence and writing lifestyle coach, book editor, and self-published writer. Her mission with Worthy Writers Editing is to bring sunflower sunshine, which I love, to the creative world, connecting writers to the confidence and passion they desire to help them publish and share their stories. So, Kirsten, thank you so much for coming back on. Is there anything that you would like to add to that bio?
No, I just want to say thank you for having me back. It's always good to connect with people that really align with the values you have as like a business and a person in general.
Yay. It's so lovely to have you back. So, I mean, obviously, writing is a huge part of who you are and what you do, but I know that you do resonate with being highly sensitive as well. So, just talk us through, like, when did you first discover that you were highly sensitive?
Yeah, so I think it's been pretty recent for me. When I say recent, probably within the last like 3 to 5 years, whatever range of I've kind of been more active in like the online community with like coaches and things like that. Because I know a lot of coaches that I've seen and connected with talk about, highly sensitive and empathic and spiritual side of things. So I think I've just kind of learned and just kind of like connected with things people have said and just like, oh, that sounds like me. That sounds right. So it's just been interesting to kind of resonate with a lot of things that I've seen online. And I've always known that I'm like an introverted person, which I think is pretty common for, highly sensitive and empathic and things like that. So, that's one thing I've always kind of known, but it's really interesting to like dive deeper into like the different aspects of being empathic and highly sensitive and just kind of putting more of the pieces together. It's like I've always kind of known who I am, but then when you learn new things, you're like, oh, and then just kind of collecting more data about yourself and just kind of understanding like, oh, that's why this happens and that makes sense. And it's just so weird when you think like, oh yeah, like I know who I am. I'm so confident in who I am. And when you learn new information, that doesn't change necessarily. It's just like makes you more understanding of yourself and just kind of like, oh, okay, that makes sense. That makes you feel a little bit better because I know for myself, like when there's something that I don't understand or like there's no like answer to something, I'm like, I need the answer. I don't know why it has to be this like broad thing. Like I need to know like why this is happening, right? So yeah, it's just been interesting to learn about myself and connect with similar people and just understand more about who I am and just being even more accepting of myself as opposed to just like, yeah, I'm kind of confident, but I don't know why things are the way they are with, how I think and act. And, I've learned about like I'm just like different like personalities and like things like that. And the word is escaping me of like the personality test thing that I was into. But anyways, that's not as important. It's just is that a highly sensitive trait? You forget things?
It definitely is for me. I think I resonate a lot with what you're saying because I think my experience of being highly sensitive, I know all of the highly sensitive people I talk to, that need for wanting to know more detail is a huge part. And I know, I don't know about you, I don't know if it plays out in writing, but I know for me when I'm writing ideas down for content or I'm writing ideas for a course or anything like that, I really do have to spend some time on my own going through it because I know I will go down different avenues. But what if that plays out? Okay, let me just go through that. But what if somebody said this? Now let's play that out. And I have to go, I do go down the different kind of avenues. Do you find that with writing as well?
Yeah, I kind of like that reminds me of like the analysis paralysis thing where just like
Yes.
there's so many possibilities. How do I go through them all and understand them all? And like if I'm researching something, like how much is too much? And there's like things like that, especially with writing, right? You're just like, I want to be detailed. I want to tell people, you know, bring people into this moment with me. And like, what if I forget something? What if? So there's all these like funny things. And that actually reminds me of a post that I wrote that I'm gonna post later this week. And it's just like about that mindset of like, what if this happens? What if the worst happens? What if, the worst of the worst happens? And then I have to do this. And then all these bad things come up. And it's just like these funny attitudes that come up of just like we're planning all these things in our heads, and sometimes it can be hard to be more present and in the moment of just like, okay, what if you just lived in the present and didn't think about every single scenario that could possibly happen?
Yes, I think that is really true, and it's something I've kind of learned over the last few years. You've hit the nail right on the head there, is I think obviously this is a generalization, and I'd love to hear the listeners if they've got a different take, but my experience is that highly sensitive people very much they do live in the head for a lot of the time. Not to say that we don't feel things in the body, because we do, because being highly sensitive is being kind of sensitive to noise and being sensitive to kind of temperatures and things like that. But I think we always want to, when something happens in the body, we straight away kind of use our cognitive brain and go, oh, I wonder why that's happening. And I wonder what that means. And I wonder what, and it's so it goes straight to the brain. And actually, what we could benefit from is really just kind of reversing that and going back to kind of living in the body for a bit. And like you said, being present is one of the ways that we can do that. So I love that you brought that into the mix there because I think it's really important. I know that in previous conversations we've talked about the internal and external highly sensitive part. So the internal part is the very much kind of what's happening in our inner world, like how we overthink and how we go down different rabbit holes. But there's the external part as well, which is, like I was saying, those sensitivities to the environment. So being cold or noise. Do you have any of those as well?
Yeah, one of the main things that come to mind that I've actually noticed in like probably the last year or so is just like my sensitivity to like noise, especially in like larger crowds. Like, if we go to family gatherings and there's like a lot of people talking, there's music, I feel like I have to have my head on a swivel and like catch all the different noises that are coming up. Like I have to, make sure I'm paying attention to all the conversations and like I'm enjoying the music and like this and that. And it's just like really overwhelming to feel like I have to like be in all the other places, which ironically makes it harder to like be in conversation with the person that's right in front of me because I'm like being pulled in all these other directions. And it just feels like, how am I supposed to like, be more outgoing and be more like involved in the present when I'm, focused on all these different things? Because, you know, as an introvert, I find there are certain shame comes to mind because there's people that are like, oh, you're introverted. You should be more outgoing. You should be more this. You
Mm.
should be more that. So I'm kind of like been trying to find that balance of like, how do I accept myself, but also kind of push myself out of the comfort zone a little bit where I'm still kind of, being like active in the social gathering and not being so focused on like all these noises and all these things that I'm feeling, like the anxieties and things like that. Cause it's just like, I want to be, who I am fully, but at the same time, there's certain situations where I kind of have to tweak who I am a little bit just to kind of fit in a little bit more. I don't know if that's a bad example to set for people, but it's just like it just feels like certain situations I have to just try a little bit harder and do things a little bit differently than I normally would if I'm just, sitting at home reading my book, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a lot to be said for the kind of support and challenge. Like, I think really accepting yourself as highly sensitive is that support aspect, isn't it? It's giving yourself that 100% support. Like, you don't have to do everything how everybody else is doing it. But I think in life, if we constantly just had support, we wouldn't grow. And so I think having that challenge sometimes as well, and being challenged in different ways, obviously not extensively, but in little kind of short bursts, can be quite good for us to kind of learn how we can, like you were talking about, adapt or change or learn something new. So I think you're spot on there with that kind of, that it feels like it's one thing or the other, but I actually think you can be both. So I love that you've brought that in. And how do you just talk about a little bit about what you do for writer for those people that haven't sort of met you before?
Sorry, can you repeat that? You're cut out a little bit.
Oh, sorry. Just kind of give us an overview of what you do in business at the moment.
Yeah, so I work with self-published writers. Some of my favorite genres are thriller, urban fantasy, memoirs, a little bit of contemporary romance, just things that those are a few things that just make me happy. And when you're a book editor and a coach, it's a lot easier to work on things that you enjoy as opposed to kind of forcing yourself to do all the things, right? So I do full service book editing with novels and everything. And I don't necessarily help with the publishing process itself since I work with a lot of self-publishers. So that's a lot of like, you're doing it on your own. Um, but I can offer like my own experiences and things like that too. I've published a few books on my own, and for myself, I chose self-publishing because there's just like that control there, and you don't have to wait for like a publisher, you don't have to like follow all their guidelines and stuff. So just being able to have that control, and I think that's a really empowering thing for a lot of people. So being able to work with self-published writers in that is really important to me. And then I really wanted to bridge the gap with, editing is a very technical side of things. So being able to add confidence coaching, lifestyle coaching. I've kind of combined those two, like confidence lifestyle coach, and just being able to bring in that mindset side and just helping writers move forward and having that support, especially if they want to, be a writer full time. As I find with a lot of creative jobs and hobbies and things like that, people just see it as, oh, that's just a little hobby or a side gig,
Mm.
or it's harder to kind of view it as like, this is my full-time job, this is my life and my career. So being able to help writers really embrace that and just be like, yeah, like this is possible. Just because, somebody else doesn't believe that it is for them doesn't mean that it can't be for you. So it's kind of those mindset things that I really want to help shift, because I see a lot of negativity online and I don't like it.
Mm. Yep, no, I'm absolutely 100% there. So what I'm hearing there, which I think is such a beautiful mix, is meeting people where they're at in terms of book editing and supporting them in building their confidence around seeing this as something more than just a hobby or just belittling what they're doing, actually empowering them to see it as something bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. I think that's incredible. And how do you find balancing being an introvert, being highly sensitive, and doing that kind of job? Like, have you got any like tools or any things that you use to kind of keep yourself in balance?
I mean, for myself, it's a lot to do with knowing where my energy's at and knowing what kind of schedule I want to have. I like to plan ahead and make sure I have kind of like the week kind of figured out. So, I do one-to-one coaching only right now. I've tried to do group coaching. I've had other coaches that really push me to do group coaching. It is exhausting. And I feel like you really need to be in a good mindset and, the proper energy to really be fully in that group setting thing. And a thought just occurred to me as I'm sharing this is like the noise thing too could kind of have something to do with this, because like when you're trying to run a group coaching session and you're like, okay, this person talks now, this person
Yeah.
talks, and you have to remember everything. And for myself, I find it really hard to pay attention and take notes about things. So I have to be present in the moment. I have
Mhm.
to listen. I have to remember. That's kind of a skill I need to practice for myself more, because if I'm taking notes, then I'm like not listening to what's being said. I'm trying to take notes. So multitasking is not the best in that situation, right? So being able to work with people one on one, knowing how many calls I can do a week, because even though it's just like a lot of listening and sharing insights and stuff, coaching can still be pretty exhausting, just like
Mm-hmm.
the mental side of it, right? And just being able to stay present and forget about all the things that are going on in my life and being there for the clients and everything. And so being able to focus on that and just know that, like, if I do, like, calls every day, that's just gonna really run me down. So that's kind of why I like having the editing thing too, because I can do that by myself. They just send me their work, and I do my thing, and then we talk a little bit afterwards. And it's kind of that nice balance of human connection and also that independent work, because I find, like, if I just had all of one or all of the other, I would go crazy. So
Yeah.
being able to still have time to connect with people and um just knowing, like, okay, I've met my cap this week, like I can't do any more social interaction. Now it's time to just focus on like my editing or doing stuff on my own. And so it's I don't remember the word for a little bit of introvert but also a little bit of extrovert, because I think I'm a little bit of both, because of I still need that human interaction
Yeah.
sometimes, but other times I just need to be by myself and relax. So I like having an online business too, where I can just decide to keep my computer off and not do anything on it that day, right?
Yeah. And I love the fact that you brought in kind of the introverted side as well as the highly sensitive side and really thought about like what suits you best. Like it's really clear you know yourself quite well. And you've tried things like you've done that challenge bit that we were talking about earlier, and then you've gone, okay, that was too much of a challenge. I want to bring it back because I'm exactly the same with kind of group coaching. I've tried it, I've tried memberships. And for me, like you were saying, it's not only the noise thing, it's the kind of it's the energy feedback I get off people. And I feel like even though I'm giving all of my attention to one person, I'm very aware that a certain person over the other side, and I'm like, I think they've got something to say. I can see from their facial expressions or the way they've just moved. And it just doesn't feel like I'm giving them all of my attention. And like you said, it's so important for you as well as it seems to be for both of us that you're present in the moment for that person. And I think presence is a huge part of what you were kind of bringing to the table there. I think it's a really, really important piece and something that can kind of get lost in those shoulds and have tos, like you should be doing this, you should have to do this. So I love that you've got that kind of understanding and that balance there. In terms of like self-publishing, because this was a question that came up earlier, and I'm just going to kind of go back to it now. If people were listening and were thinking, okay, I would like to self-publish, I would like to write a book, I've got an idea. What would you kind of recommend as their first kind of couple of steps to get them started?
Yeah, I mean, one thing to really think about is patience, because I know that there's a lot of people that, like, I just want to get this book published. I'm ready for it. Like, I want people to know, like, you can, like, physically, you are able to publish a book anytime you want. But I think it's really a lot more powerful to focus on, that quality over quantity thing, where
Hmm.
you want to create a book that you're really proud of, that people are really going to love. And, you know, I talk about this a lot about like perfection and stuff like that. Perfect doesn't exist, but you kind of want to get it to the point where it's almost perfect. It's at that point where, like, you're proud to share it and you're ready to get there. So it's just really important to remember, like, writing a book, publishing a book, it is a long process. It's not a lonely process, which is also important to remember. Like, in the beginning stages, like when you're planning it out, and that's kind of the first thing, you kind of have to have a plan of what you want to create. And then writing the drafts and a little bit of self-editing as well, because you really want to get it to the best of your ability before you start sharing it with others and kind of getting their input, because it kind of comes back to group coaching and noise. And it's just like, you don't want to constantly have all that noise coming at you when you're just trying to create something, right? Because creativity is really a really emotional and
Yeah.
powerful thing, regardless of what type of story you're writing. So being able to kind of be in that moment with yourself and enjoying that process, and just being able to focus on one day at a time, one word at a time. And just one thing I really like to work with my clients with is just like creating that schedule for themselves and just kind of doing something that works for them, because some people can write every week, every day even, and get like, crank out all their words and reach their word count goals really well. But some people can only write like once a week. And so it's just kind of that acceptance piece again, where you have to kind of accept where you're at as well and what you're capable of. Because everybody has different life situations, and as much as I would like to write all day every day and just have that be my life, it's not the only thing that I want to be, and it's just not how life works anyways. So it's just being able to kind of understand your schedule and being able to grow from that, and not letting that fear of, like I talked about before, like all those what ifs that come up and that fear that comes in, and just kind of doing what you need to do, and having fun with the creation process, because it's like I said, it's a long process. It's a balance of, you're by yourself for the most part for the beginning, and then you start bringing in different people, and a lot of criticism can come from that, and that brings in judgment of yourself, and there's a lot of things that can come into play. So it's just being able to take it one moment at a time, and just learning from your experiences, and just being patient with it all. And I hope that answered your question. I know that was kind of a lot of a grand scheme of the process, but I think just the summary of it is just like having that patience and having that joy of being a creative, and just creating a book that you're really proud of. And it may feel like you're running out of time, and you want to do something. You have so many ideas, and that's another thing with being creative. There's so many ideas that you want to do, but focusing on one thing at a time can really help you progress faster, because if you're focusing all of your writing and creative energy on this one project, then it can kind of move along further. But just being able to have that patience, have the joy, and you'll get there eventually, I promise.
I love that. And so sort of making sure in small steps that you've got a schedule will help, thinking about small steps, thinking about how to fit it in with your lifestyle, making sure that you're kind of self-editing a little bit as you're going through before handing it over to an editor. When you've got like, when you're at that stage and you want to actually go and get it self-published, how do you actually do that? Do you do it? I know a lot of people go through the Amazon route. Is that the only way, or is there another way to kind of self-publish?
Amazon is pretty popular, and one thing with self-publishing is that typically um, you publish it, it's free to upload it to the platform, and then they just take their cut of the
Hmm.
profits with each book that's sold. There's Ingram Spark. I haven't used that one myself, but I just know that that's a very popular one, especially in the US. I have a series of journals that I publish through Lulu Publishing. They're a little bit more on the expensive side, but I just like the the platform and the control. And I'm not the biggest fan of Amazon. I won't go into it too much, but I'll just leave it at that. Not a
That's
big fan
fine.
of Amazon. Don't want to choose to use it. So there are other platforms. When it comes to publishing, never pay someone to publish your work, because that's typically a vanity press, or just taking advantage of you for spending thousands of dollars when you haven't even done anything yet. So just a little red flag there. Be on the
Yeah.
lookout for that. So yeah, there's self-publishing, there's hybrid, you can self-publish and also work with like a small traditional publisher. So that's one thing to remember too, is that there's so many options out there if you're willing to do a little bit of research. Like it's not just Amazon self-publishing, or the big names of
Hmm.
publishing. There's a lot of like local publishers and things like that you can look to. And there's coaches that help you through publishing and marketing, and there's tons of people on Instagram and Facebook I've connected with in the book community that help with every step of the way. So just and it may take a little bit of research, but it's good to find people that can help you with things that aren't necessarily your strengths.
Hmm.
So it's good to just be aware of that. And it is a little bit of a investment when it comes to editing and like cover design and stuff like that. But if you're really, passionate about creating this book, it's definitely something that's worth it. So that's just something to be aware of as well.
Yeah, yeah. I know my husband went and did some. Well, I think I've said this to you before, but he wrote a book and we didn't know anything about it. He'd just go, because he's a writer anyway. I will, you know, just add that in there. He didn't just sort of disappear on us. He's always writing, so he would always kind of disappear up to the study and kind of be writing. He's done like articles for football and things like that. So we just assumed he was doing that. And then like a year later, he's like, I've got to tell you something. I was like, oh no, like what? And he's like, I've written a book. I was like, what? That's not what I was expecting. Um, but he went through the self-publishing route and he went with the one that you don't like. And he when it was going to the cost side of things, he was really shocked at how much he had to charge per book to actually make any kind of profit on the book. So again, I don't know if that intrigues anybody out there, but like you were saying, doing your research and actually looking around is a really good thing because I think a lot of people don't realize how much certain people or certain companies take off you before the book's even out there.
Yeah, and I think it's no different from like when you're a self-published author, you're kind of a business owner because, a lot of the marketing and everything is up to you. And so it's really no different from, having a business. You have your expenses, you have employees you pay and stuff like that. So it's really just about choosing what's most important to you and
Mm.
investing in, it's not just investing money, it's like investing in yourself, as cheesy as that can sound sometimes. It's when you're creative, it's a part of who you are, right? So it's really important to just make those choices for yourself. You don't have to like justify them to anyone and be like, oh, well, I have to do this because XYZ. It's just like, I'm publishing the book. This is the steps I need to take to get there. This is what I'm gonna do. And it it sucks that the world runs on money. I
Yeah.
say that a lot, but it's just like it is what it is. So we just have to kind of do our best and create what we can and reach as many people as we can, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And when you're kind of working with clients, do you find that, first of all, there's a couple of questions that are coming up for me. Do you find that when you're working with clients that you work with a lot of people that are similar in character to you, so also highly sensitive and also introverted, or do you work with a wide range of different people? That was my first question.
Yeah, I find that people are kind of similar energy to me. Like I find that I'm pretty good at kind of like gauging people and kind of like knowing like my gut feeling, like are they a
Mhm.
good fit to work with me? Like when you're talking to them and you can kind of see like who's going to be um really open with, answering your questions and really sharing with you on the coaching side and things like that. And like I said, when I work with book editing, it's about like the genres and what I'm
Mhm.
actually going to enjoy reading and things like that. So I think I'm pretty good at, understanding who's going to be a good fit. When I first started out, there was that desperation of like, I need money and clients, so I got to work with anyone and everyone. But it's just like that is also a draining thing to do,
Yes.
right? It's better to find clients that are actually a good fit and match your energy and or be able to. And I tend to find that like a lot of authors are kind of more introverted anyways. I guess it's
Mhm.
kind of that writing thing where it's just like you're in the zone, you're like by yourself, writing in your keyboard or journal, whatever, right? So it's people are pretty similar to me, but it's interesting how we find similarities, but like there's so many different people out there. It's crazy.
Yes, they are. And I always talk about like it's always a scale. It's never like you're something or you're not. It's like a scale of where you are on that. Like some people have got a little bit of it, some people have got a lot. So even with highly sensitive or introverts, there's going to be a huge wide range of different types of introverts and different types of highly sensitive people. So yeah, I absolutely agree. There are so many different people. My second question that came up to me earlier was about still about your clients. Do you find that when you're working with a client, have you seen like a consistent problem that pops up for every single person or a general pattern that you have to support that you know is going to come up for them? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think the main couple ones are, finding the right time to write and, just dealing with that comparison syndrome
Mm.
and those fears that come up. A lot of the writers I've connected with on Instagram are parents or they have, full-time jobs on top of like their writing. So it's a lot of people that aren't full-time writers yet that they want to or they don't. Like it doesn't really there's not really a requirement there whether you want to be full-time with this or not. But there's definitely clients I work with that they're trying to find that balance of like, I keep prioritizing all these other things, but how do I, just make time for writing and make progress in my writing and just like that fear that comes up of just like there's all these amazing writers out there, like what do I have to say, like how is my book gonna be anything new, anything different? And like I just said, like it's crazy how many different people are out there. So it's like it's crazy how even though there are similarities with genres and books and book tropes and everything like that, you're still creating something unique with your unique thoughts and imagination. And it's hard for me to wrap my brain around how different people can be in that sense and in their writing. It's just like, how does everyone not think exactly the same way that I do? Like, I don't know how that works, right?
Absolutely. And you've told us like what your favorite genres are to read, but what is your favorite genre to write?
That's kind of a funny question. I was just writing a blog about that the other day of just like, I used to think that thriller was my like all-time favorite because that's what I loved reading, like
Mhm.
James Patterson, Stephen King, like those kind of books, right? So I was just like, yeah, like I'm gonna be a mystery thriller writer. But then like as I tried to write it, it was just so hard to wrap my mind around like the twists and trying to make characters that are likable and cool and all that kind of stuff. And then I read Magic Strings of Frankie Presto by Mitch Albom, and that changed everything. So I was like, oh my god, this is what I want to write. And it was so exciting because it was just like I just want to inspire people and empower people and make them feel good and help them find their purpose in life and all that kind of stuff. So it was kind of funny that I kind of evolved as like a editor and coach, finding these values within myself, but then I was still trying to be a thriller writer. And then suddenly, I read that book and just like, oh, that's what all this stuff was trying to say to me. You're like, write this book, stop trying to write all these dark things. And it's interesting to like enjoy reading like mysteries and thrillers and like suspenseful stuff, but then also writing like the happy sunshine stuff and just kind
Yeah.
of that balance within myself.
I love that. That kind of, again, that polarity that doesn't, that it feels like you have to be one thing or the other, but you don't. You can be both.
Yeah.
I love that. So if people kind of wanted to work with you or wanted to find out more about you, where could they find you?
Yeah, so I have my website, worthywriters.ca. There's lots of information on my services. I have a weekly newsletter, podcasts, everything like that. And I mainly hang out on Instagram, confident.kirsten. I'm kind of on Facebook, but it's just kind of, the subset of the content that I create and stuff. So I like Instagram. I think it's just because of the creative side of things and everything. So yeah, they can connect with me on there. And I have a free consult call called the Worthy Writers Conversation if they want to just get to know me and if they're interested in editing or coaching. And I do have a freebie I could talk about if you want me to share
Yeah,
that as well.
absolutely.
Yeah, so I have two, but they're kind of similar. So they're digital journals. They both include writing prompts and a 30-minute call with me just to kind of see how you want to move forward with your writing journey. So there's one called Write Your Entrepreneurial Memoir. I think it's self-explanatory, kind of helps you. There's 8 writing prompts in there, just kind of helps you really, well, both of them really help you find that solid foundation of like, okay, what do I want? Where do I want to go? How do I get there? Those kind of like main kind of things, and just gives you that foundation of figuring yourself out and just finding that next step forward. So the other one is called Create with Purpose. That has 7 writing prompts, and they both include a 30-minute call with me just to, find that first step, like I said, and just build that foundation of like, okay, this is my confident writer self. This is what I want to do. Now how do I get there? So that kind of with the prompts and the call kind of gives you that next step of like, okay, this is what I want to do. So it's good to kind of have that wide range of you know, things of what you want in your future and stuff, and then just kind of start by narrowing it back down and be like, okay, this is step one. This is what I need to focus on first, right?
Yeah. And I love the fact as you're saying that each of them has got a call at the end because I know that from talking to you earlier, that's your way of kind of saying to everybody, I want to support you and I want you to know that I'm listening and
Mm-hmm.
that I'm present with you and want to support you on taking those next steps. So I think that's such a beautiful thing to offer people. And I'll put those links in the show notes so that people can download that and start their own journey, whether being a memoir or more a fictional one. I'm still undecided. I think I definitely do write. We've spoken about this before, haven't we? I
Mm-hmm.
do write. There is a journal that I want to write. That's my big aim for this year. But I do like fiction, but weirdly enough, like you were saying before, just don't know how to fit that in. So at the
Yeah.
moment, we'll see. But I'm enjoying kind of just kind of playing around and seeing what comes up. So an invitation to any listeners listening to kind of have a play and get in touch with Kirsten if you do want to take those next steps. Is there anything else you would like to share with the listeners before we wrap up?
No, I think just thank you for having me and for listening to me. And I just love connecting with creatives. You know, one of my goals this year is just to kind of make more connections and just be able to grow, you know, as a person, as a business, and just find people that really align with, you know, who I am and what I like to do.
Yeah. And anybody listening, Kirsten is genuine and really does care about you as a person. If you ever do sort of connect with her on Facebook and Instagram, there is always a conversation that is generated with Kirsten. It's never like a just a one done comment. It's always a, oh, let's explore that further. What does this mean? There's always a conversation. So please do go and check her out and connect with her. She's a wonderful, wonderful person. So Kirsten, thank you so much for coming on today. I really do appreciate it. And I'll be back next week with another episode. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. If you have any takeaways or any questions, please do reach out to me either through Instagram, LinkedIn or Facebook at Kate Carter Coaching, or you can email me at kate@katecarter.co.uk. I always love to hear your feedback and the things that you have taken from the podcast. If you know of any other highly sensitive people, then please do share this so that I can reach more and support more highly sensitive people to embrace their strengths and gifts. As a thank you, I will pick a winner every month for a free 50-minute coaching session with me. Thank you so, so much.